get stuff set up and you're ready to come up here. Always got his own mic back there.
That's right. I have my own mic in the back, so I don't have to go to the front. Our speaker today is Kevin Shields, who is the new publisher of the Stillwater News Press. He's been here for 3.5 weeks. So his roots are already deep. I will tell you that I've been texting with Christy Morrison, who's now going to be mortified. She's ragging on you because you're wearing a red shirt to Rotary.
I hate to say it this way, but the worst thing that could have happened for me sports-wise did happen. Is the University of Georgia made the College World Series in women's softball. And just guess who they're playing today. So I had a choice. I could either go with the local team or the team that I'm a letterman in Georgia basketball. I know my height really throws you and everything like that. I was on staff, so I had to go with who I'm a letterman of and just kind of be subtle. I could have worn the lapel pin and everything, but went away from that. So tell Christy, I'm sorry.
Well, she just heard you. And he is a former Rotarian. He does have an application, so we're looking forward to joining the club. So,
you know what? A diehard Georgia fan, you can find me $10. Put it down. I will pay for it. So, like he said, I am the new publisher at the News Press. I am not a preacher, nor am I a teacher. So I'm not one of these stand behind a podium, although I was told I had to because of Zoom. So I'll make that concession. But if you've got a question or anything like that, I'd much rather talk to you for 20 minutes or so about things you might want to know, whether it's about the news press, myself, the industry at whole, than sit here and just rattle on and watch you fall asleep. So I'll give you a little bit about my background. I did graduate University of Georgia back in 1996. So people like to say that makes me young. I really don't feel young. These are 1 week old when you think you're just going to get reading glasses and they go, nope, progressive lenses. So stairs have become my number one enemy as of late. And various other, and trying to watch the TV at normal angles and all sorts of stuff. But started at the Athens Banner Herald in Athens, Georgia. And for me, it was just a job. I was one of these, and I'm sure you have plenty of them in Stillwater. Some of you may be like this. When I graduated the University of Georgia, I was like, I'm never leaving Athens. I'm never going to leave Athens. And then something happened on September 11th, 2001. And that took it from being a job for the past 2 years to something I wanted to do for a career. And that was after staying up for 5 days. As just news came in, and all of a sudden people didn't care if it was online. They didn't care if it was in print. They didn't care if it was word of mouth. We did a special edition for our local paper because at the same point in time, similar to what Oklahoma City had previously with the bombing, a Ryder truck wound up outside our federal building. And no one knew who it was. This was right after the second tower fell. So they closed off all the streets, and I hate to say the adrenaline, but there is an adrenaline rush there when you're covering stuff like that. As it turns out, it was a guy who the staff had forgot was there to get his business license. And he was sitting in the waiting room. All the government folk had rushed to TVs like we all did, watching CNN, Fox, what have you. And he's just sitting there as a tactical SWAT team surrounds his vehicle, and the bomb squad comes out. And the funny thing is, he was just like, I was just sitting there playing Tetris on my kid's Game Boy, and finally got it all squared away. But that was the day I said, okay, I want to do this wherever it takes me. Took me to South Carolina, took me to Vermont. Everybody here always asks what Vermont is like. In a word, it's cold. And I don't mean cold as in what you might have here, like when you had the ice storm that came through, or the winter weather that came through Texas and hit Oklahoma real hard. Imagine if that started a week before Halloween and you just looked up and you saw snow-capped mountains. And, when you're first there, you think, oh, how pretty, how beautiful. It's like the Newhart Show. Robert Frost wrote poems about it. Whereas the locals are walking by going, time to prepare, and walking off. Imagine if that stuck with you till Memorial Day. And at some point in time in January, where you think it can't get any worse, God decides that -10 sounds like a great high for 4 weeks. And things start to have, it's bad when on the news at night they go, by the way, tomorrow is a skin warning day. And what that means is 60 seconds exposed skin, frostbite will develop. And it hurts to breathe. and your eyes start to freeze over. It hurts to blink. It just hurts and hurts and hurts. So in February, we got 4 feet of snow in about 20 hours. And that was the day my wife said, we're leaving. And I was like, well, I got to find a job and everything like that. She's like, no, you misunderstand me. We're all either leaving or I'm leaving. So then we went to Alabama to Texas, Texas back to Georgia, and Georgia finally here. And I'm tired of moving. So you're stuck with me for a while until I retire. Now, when I retire, I'm going off to Hilton Head and buy a condo and not care about not watch any news ever again. But I always kind of, when I give these speeches, I kind of get a little, what do I want to talk about? What should I talk about? What should I discuss? So I thought, well, Kevin's invited me, even though Rob signed in for me last week to be a guest. And that usually works out pretty well. You get to know some people, figure out what their interests are. So as I'm sitting there, all of a sudden okay, first topic, haven't met any of these people. We're going to talk about serial killers. Okay. Good to know. And we're not going to talk about serial killers, about how horrible they are or anything like that. We're going to have fun trivia time about people who murder people in mass. Okay, well, maybe that's just him. So we move on from that, and then, okay, we got an author. Oh, look, a beautiful coffee table book. Okay, now we're going to talk about cockfighting. Okay, serial killers and cockfighting. This is becoming a hard crowd to please. And then we've got a great author, Stanford educated lawyer, is going to stand up and then, we're going to talk about the worst crimes that ever happened in the history of our state. So I came to a conclusion that day. Either y'all are the most fun group of people on the planet, or I don't need to make eye contact and just slowly walk out the door. So nothing's been thrown at me yet. You notice Kevin, when he introduced me, made sure he was at a completely other side of the room. I will not hesitate if you want to jump up and say that all news is fake. I've heard it before. In the 70s, that was the fish wrap. When I was a little kid, just reading the paper, the names changed. I've been called everything but a child of God in this business. So you will not hurt my feelings if you have a problem with us. Give you a little bit of background about what I think envisioned for the news press. Typically, I don't make any changes on anything for 90 days. Basically, to make a change personnel wise, you'd have to be, one of my staff would have to embezzle money or harass somebody or something of that nature, because I don't know how things have ran here. I don't know how things work. I know how I've been told they run here, but anybody who's ever moved for a job knows what you're told on this end to get you to take said job can sometimes be radically different than what is going on in reality. The pandemic, like anything else, hurt our business. It hurt every business. But I do want to address something that everybody likes to say, including one member of our editorial board. Newspapers are not dead. I would not move 1,000 miles for something that I thought was dead. I would not do that. We reach 89 between all of our platforms. We reach on a daily basis 89% of the adults over 18 in Payne County, not just Stillwater. Now, that's amazing to me because I don't think we do a good enough job with covering Payne County, both on the county end as far as government goes, but also what's happening in Perkins, what's happening in Cushing. Now, some people say, hey, they've got weeklies out there, and that's fine, well and good, but we are going to strive to be the paper of Payne County. My goal in year one, and by year one, I don't mean 2021, I mean 12 months from when I showed up, is going to be to add staff. The good part is we're not owned by the New York Times Incorporated. By the way, they're not owned by USA Today. USA Today is owned by Gannett/Gatehouse, the evil empire, which was convenient when they merged, because when they merged, it told me now I only have one company I have to refuse to work for, because I've done the Gannett evil empire thing and I won't do it again. But that's just a side note. So we want to add some sales staff. We also want to add a couple reporters and get back to pre-pandemic level staffing. We want to be the paper for the entire county. Along with that is my philosophy that it's not my paper at the end of the day. But here's the thing. It's not CNHI, our parent company's paper either. It's you guys. It's everybody out there. We're just stewards of it. I'll be long gone at some point in time, 20, 30 years, what have you. People before me have been long gone, and it's still there. Now, to further address the fact that people think that, oh, the newspapers are dying. Here's the thing. People don't care about platform anymore. If there's something you want to watch, and I may be asking the wrong crowd, but if there's something you want to see, a program, a show, live sporting event, do you care if it's on Netflix, ABC, or you got to go to YouTube to see it? Do you really care? Because you want to see it, right? That's the same thing regardless of age. We always hear, oh, the young people aren't doing that. You give compelling content, you give content people want, they don't care about platform. They just don't. I saw loads of college kids go out and buy a newspaper in my last stop in Seneca, South Carolina, because we're right next door to Clemson, and we were the paper for Clemson, and they'd won a national title. We were a 10,000 circulation newspaper. We sold 27,000 papers that day because we just kept printing and printing and printing and printing. Helps, we owned our own press. We in Stillwater print Enid, but we still own it. We own the Enid paper as well. So, but wait, college kids aren't supposed to want to buy the paper. So why do you think, I'm going to ask a question, why do you think they bought the paper that day? Exactly. Because what has staying power, sir? People still collect newspapers because it matters. I've got a 9/11 special edition hanging in my office just simply because of that fact. Now, granted, I'm biased and whatnot towards the industry, but the problem is we've done it to ourselves. And what I mean by that is we've let the New York Times, you would ask about them, USA Today, who lied about their circulation on that, having been at Gannett. They are not the most read newspaper in the country. It's Wall Street Journal. USA Today doesn't even print 1 million copies anymore. Wall Street prints 1.2. So I forgot where I was going with that. But we've let them basically scream that, oh, our business is failing. Our business model is failing. Have you ever heard Coca-Cola stand up there and go, nobody's going to be drinking anything anymore? Or Minute Maid, which is owned by Coke, and going, orange juice is no longer going to work. No, they wouldn't say that about their own business. So why is the New York Times and Gannett and others saying it about that? One is, even people who say they don't want pity, nobody really minds. You feel better when you lose something or somebody and someone offers condolences, right? They want the attention. They're like my kids. They want pity, in my opinion. And why do they want to say that? Because let's put it this way. 2007, I was at Burlington Free Press. Our profit margin that year was 62.5. And we made the mistake of, at Gannett, is we never reinvested. They gave dividends, huge dividends. So what happened when we had a downturn and we became more of a 20 to 30% profit margin business? Those dividend checks, what'd they do? They shrunk. So what'd the hedge funds do? Started on these massive takeovers and massive stock buyouts and whatnot. So we did it to ourselves by paying dividends higher than we should have and whatnot. But community newspapers like Stillwater and the papers that CNHI owns, the paper I came from, which was one of total 4 in a chain, we made more money during the pandemic where I came from than we'd ever made in our history. Does that sound unhealthy? Does that sound like it's a bad business model? But we continue to let New York, Chicago, and LA dictate what the message is. And there's a group of us, of which I'm a proud member of. We don't have a secret handshake. We do have a decoder ring if you'd like one. That we decide to get a wee bit vocal about it. And Kevin Slimp, who some of you may know because he's from Oklahoma, led the charge in this. And 5 years ago, the editor of the New York Times said that the New York Times would no longer print a paper in 2.5 years. The last I checked, you can still go buy one. And Kevin Slimp, who had done, at least insinuated he had done well with his money, offered up to $1 million bet on it. And he's like, we can make it 15. And 5 years later, of course, he keeps retweeting it out saying, you were wrong then, you're wrong now. Community newspapers are some of the healthiest they've ever been. And it's because we realize what we are and what we're not. Now, sometimes we've made mistakes. And those mistakes is, I can promise you one thing, unless Joe Biden visits here, close to local, like he did with Tulsa, he's never going to be on my front page, period. Now, to be fair to the other side of things, to the other political spectrum, if Donald Trump was in office still, he would not be on my front page. And the reason, because that is, what is, somebody here probably knows very easily, what's the full name of the paper? Yes, what's the most important word there? Exactly. We want to cover everything Stillwater. I do not want to see on the front page, and this is one of my dead set principles. We are the paper of Stillwater, Oklahoma. We are not the paper of Oklahoma City. We're not the paper of Tulsa. We're not the paper of the U.S. Has anybody seen I forget the title now. Tom Hanks did a movie about the Washington Post. I think Meryl Streep was in it as well, played the owner of the Washington Post, took over for her husband who had died. It was about the Vietnam papers during the Nixon era. And loved the movie. It was great. Showed all sorts of backstories. And then it ticked me off in the very end with one line and one line only. Because he looks over at Meryl Streep's character and goes, well, we're no longer a little local newspaper anymore. Well, Jeff Bezos, who now owns it, that's his problem, is they don't cover Washington, D.C. anymore. There is no paper in Washington, D.C. that hardcore covers the District of Columbia. And that's why the Washington Post is hurting financially. In reality, Jeff Bezos, just for a side note, he only bought the Washington Post because he wanted access to, of all things, their carrier force. Because that carrier force that delivered every morning, you know, the old paperboys have been gone for years, but that carrier force is what led to, see those Amazon minivans driving around? That's how he built it, was modeling after a newspaper carrier force. Because we were already out. We have the best maps of anybody. And generally speaking, at every newspaper office, you can find a human GPS. You've all been out there and had the problem where your GPS, especially Waze, if anybody uses that one, will lead you to, oh, turn here, turn there. And next thing you know, I'm surrounded by a field. I did that looking for a car wash in Stillwater. I typed in car wash. It took me 9 miles out of town. I'm sitting there going, okay, well, I'm going to try. Who knows? I mean, I don't know the area or anything like that. Had me turn into a little lot off a field. And I'm like, huh. Now, if I'd known Joe Toth, our circulation guy already, I'd have called him. In Seneca, that happened to me. I called our circulation guy. And he's like, okay, what you want to do is go 0.8 miles down this road, turn, go 0.2 of a mile, turn right. He took me through 17 turns through just mentally. Why? Because he'd been doing it for 32 years. He knew where everything was. And when you can find everything at 2:00 in the morning, you can find it in the afternoon. So, but that's the biggest thing I want you to know. Your Stillwater News Press, and it is yours, is perfectly healthy. Could we be healthier? Absolutely. That's why part of the reason I'm here. Could we sell more ads? Absolutely. Could we cover more things? Absolutely. But that is our goal. I welcome all questions, opinions, anything of that nature. You are not going to offend me. I was raised by a special forces member. Your questions are not going to dictate my happiness for the day. Yes, sir. Finally.
Any conceivable way that we can get back to delivery on my driveway as opposed to the mailbox?
Probably not. That is there are pros and cons to both. I prefer mail delivery. I will say that, you know, I grew up, you know, you saw the motto of neither rain nor sleet nor snow. Yeah, that's a lie. Rain, sleet, or rain won't stop them, but sleet and snow will at times. But that decision was made just because how many people here own a current business or run a current business? How many of y'all have seen that everybody's having a hard time hiring? Now imagine I want to hire somebody who's going to work 6 days a week, or 5 days a week or what have you, 3 days a week. You're going to show up about 2 a.m. in the morning. If we're off press, if something hasn't happened that we had to hold for, or if there's not a mechanical breakdown, you're going to go out and deliver. And then you're going to do that every single day. You're an independent contractor. So as long as you finish by 6 a.m., you're good. I can't tell you when to start. I can't train you by law. So then you're going to do that 6 days a week. You don't have a schedule per se. It has to be done by 6 a.m. every day. So you can't ever take a vacation. Can't ever take a day off. Can't get sick. How hard do you think that's going to be to fill right now? Especially with unemployment like it was for a while there. And by the way, you're going to make about $1,000 a month if you're lucky. And that's just what I'm going to cut the check for. Generally speaking, newspaper carriers are people who, and I come from the circulation end of things. I should probably mention that. So we counted it up one day, me and my oldest daughter, because she was in that curious phase. I've had about 72,000 independent contractors throughout my career. And as such, they're the most antisocial people you've ever met. But most of them realize it. They're not like bad people. They're just like, I don't want to talk to customers. I don't want to deal with people. It works well for them. And for them, I've had carriers who made 70 grand in a year because they carried USA Today, New York Times, Wall Street, all of them, every paper you can imagine in an area that came to an area, and they delivered all of them. Now it takes about 5 to 7 years before they're all the same route. So for 5 to 7 years, you're all over the place. But carrier delivery is probably not coming back. Postal Service does a good job for us as long as we get it to them on time. I'm hoping, if we were told we were on time today, our driver hit a deer on 51. It's funny because we drive an E450. So he's like, well, it was a small deer. I was like, in E450, all deer are small. So it couldn't have been too small because E450's got a steel bumper. Anybody y'all familiar with that box truck? And it dented the bejesus out of it. And the headlights like laying off to the side and stuff like that. Better than in Burlington, Vermont, where I had 2 guys run into a moose and it ejected one from the car. And the moose never even fell down. So any other like I said, I'd rather talk about things that y'all want to hear. Yes, ma'am.
So comment first, I'm a numbers person and I would say that your 89% is highly suspect.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be one place to investigate. And the second comment I would make is the paper has historically been very, very biased and not good about entertaining viewpoints of the citizenship. That's been kind of biased. So
In which way?
Ask you, what do you believe about censorship, and what do you do to make sure that alternate viewpoints are being heard?
I'm an old school just the facts guy. That's how I like to lean. Unless CNHI tells me otherwise, I can tell you one of the things that's gone from the paper is we will not endorse. I don't believe in it. We present you all the information that we can get a hold of and all the information that we can verify. And that's key. If I don't have 2 people willing to go on record, I'm not going to print the viewpoint, what's seen as a viewpoint, but maybe facts. If I cannot double verify it, I will not run it. If I cannot find someone to go on, I hate anonymous sources, because when you hear something that goes against your political ideology, whether that's left, right, libertarian, Green Party, whatever have you, and you hear an anonymous source said this, what's the first thing that goes through your head? They made it up. In reality, I've known a lot of left-wing reporters. I've known a lot of very far right-wing reporters, especially being in the South most of my career. I've never known anybody who made it up, but I see the perception of making up an anonymous source. So I don't believe, use anonymous sources to get a tip to go look over here or to go over here. And you will eventually, if you work hard enough, find somebody who will be willing to go on the record. And that's the thing that just we're going to do. I'm guessing just by Oklahoma, because in every state it's different, in every location it's different, that viewpoints is we're probably seen as being to the left. Would I be correct? No?
I think there's a big dichotomy in Stillwater personally.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't mean Stillwater. I mean the paper. We're viewed as being to the left.
Oh, yes. I would
Yes.
accept that
I just got called a right-wing rag, by the way, an hour and a half ago. Some of that is to be expected, but typically in Oklahoma, Georgia, South Carolina, my papers and papers I've been at have been accused of being to the left. In Vermont, of all places, land of Bernie Sanders, there's no dichotomy in Vermont. Well, in reality, there is. Once you get outside Burlington, it's as far right as you could imagine. It's just they don't have the population numbers. And they put the furthest right people you'd find here to shame. They hate the government. They're off-grid livers. There's stuff like that. They're really entertaining people, and I got friends who do it. I got friends on the other side. But in the land of Bernie Sanders, you'd think, okay, left wing, left wing, left wing. We got accused of being to the right of everything, on everything. That's how I met Ben and Jerry of Ben and Jerry's Ice Cream. Was my second day. We didn't have any key cards to get in the door. We didn't even lock our doors really, except at night. So every door, and it's one of those, like the news press, looks like several different buildings put together, several different entrances. There was a protest in our lobby. And they're like, hey, you're a circulation guy, right? Yeah, you're in charge of security. What are you going to do about this? My second day. And as the publishers lead me, and we're just stepping over people covered in red paint because they were protesting that we were pro the Iraq war. And of course, they couldn't answer the question because I had to be a smart out and go, well, which one? But nonetheless, our publisher starts and goes, oh, by the way, that's Ben and Jerry of Ben and Jerry's Ice Cream. And it was odd to me, not this, because I figured they keep their, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. We don't want whatever anymore. No, they pop up dripping in this red paint. They're like, hey, nice to meet you. And they come on out to the plant, which is funny because they always hold themselves at that high standard of, oh, we're local Vermonters. We'd never sell out. Capitalism is evil. They sold to Unilever in like 2000, a Dutch soap company for $1 billion. So they had their price too. They didn't like it when I pointed that out. But so I'm big about covering all viewpoints as long as they're factual. There's certain things like, for example, people write in a letter to the editor, then call and go, you didn't run my letter to the editor. But it's filled with things that are either A, inaccurate, bold-faced lies. You can write a letter to editor all you want. I will not censor your opinion. Rest assured, though, I will not correct spelling errors. I will not correct grammatical errors, because my belief is the general public, if you want to get on a soapbox and scream, has every right to see you as smart as you want them to believe you are, or as dumb as you may be. So I'm not gonna protect you from that, but I'm gonna air your opinion unadulterated. But when you start saying things that factually cannot be proven, then I have to start working with it. And the reason I have to start working with that is because anything that can be proven a lie or as untrue, because I put it in print, I'm liable. Someone can sue me over it. Anything I put on print. Now, if you want to put it on a Facebook post, as long as you don't cuss, that's fine. I'm not liable for that. You can put it underneath an article. You can do all you want. But anything that I technically take and move to another forum, I am liable for. Yes, sir.
So, say you're not going to endorse, what about the opinion column?
The opinion, I do reserve.
I'm talking about from the editorial.
Mhm. We will run opinions. That is part of our thing. Our editorial board is very unique here in the fact that we don't just have newspaper people on it. In fact, we are the minority of people on it when we get and discuss these issues. It's myself, the editor, and then I don't even know how many people we have on that thing total. 8. So any complaints about that, you can take right to Rob and Kevin. So they are both on it, along with a good amount of other people, and it's big enough where if we had someone get sick or something like that, we can still function. And we take all that into account. I do reserve the right to endorse if I've only had this happen once, where we had someone who was such a danger to the community that we didn't really endorse the competitor. We endorsed not voting for this individual. It was someone who was running for sheriff. At the same time they were running for sheriff, they won the Democratic nominee. they were the only Democratic nominee running in Rabun County, Georgia. Rabun County, Georgia went 82% the first time for Trump. So that tells you where their politics are. And he had been banned from court as a sheriff's deputy, as a police deputy, excuse me, twice because he pulled his gun on the witness stand. He was currently suing the county, the people he wants to work for, because his wife had been arrested because she went to the hospital. They gave her Percocet. She drove off while on Percocet, and he pulled up in full uniform as a police deputy. That's what got him fired, and said, "Do you know who I am?" and threatened the cops who pulled her over for erratically driving. So unless it's that bad, I'm going to stay out of it. Generally speaking, I was ready to write on that because he would have been a danger. And then I remembered it's Rabun County went 82% for Trump, and he's got a D by his name. He took 2% of the vote, and I think it was all his family who voted for him. So but the editorials, we're going to try and be diverse. I remember my first day we ran some guy pro Second Amendment and some liberal guy off AP. I forget, it might have been Terrence or somebody like that. So we're going to try and put it all out there. I'm one who I like to put out a lot of different voices. Besides just, you get the same Democrat, Republican. I'd love to put a libertarian voice in there. I'd love to put a Green Party voice in there. Give it all to you and decide what you want to read. Decide what you want to see. Tell me what you want to see. Realize that there's certain things we can do with the editorial page we can never do with the actual news product. Had a meeting with them yesterday. Give me about 6-12 months. I hope to never have anything with the name AP by it again. I want to phase out all AP because there's no need for it. So we are going to be changing how we do sports as well. I'm sure a lot of you have read our football preview that we do for high school at the beginning of the year. Or beginning of the academic year. Well, that's going to change. So if you've got does anybody have a kid who plays fall sports but doesn't play football? Plays something else? Grandkid, niece, nephew? Only one of you? Wow. Okay, a couple of you. We're changing our football preview. Football preview is effectively dead, but it will still exist. It's going to be a fall sports preview. We're going to have every single athlete in the paper from Stillwater, Perkins, Yale, you name it, for fall. Then we'll do the same in the winter. Because in my book, those kids work just as hard as football does. It's just not as popular. Now, will they get the same attention as football? No. But do they deserve the attention because they run cross country? Absolutely. And of course, what does that do to my readership numbers? It helps. But I'm big on that because I was a non-football athlete and we never got the attention either. Yet we worked just as hard. And as someone who worked in Division I athletics, I will tell you the hardest working athletes on the planet are swimmers. It's not close. Football can claim what they want. Basketball, which I was with, can claim what they want. When we did two-a-days, we had to show up at 4:30 in the morning to get ready for practice. Swim team's already in the pool as we walked by. They were still in the pool when we left to go to class. When we got back, they were already in the pool at 3:00. When we left at 7, they were still in the pool. They are and they're year round because they have indoor and outdoor. So based on that effort alone, doesn't like a 16-year-old swimmer deserve the same attention? To get their name in the paper and their photo in the paper and to be recognized for that hard work, which they're doing, that we all like to support as residents of Stillwater. Questions? Yes, sir.
Do you see the news press's role reporting what's happening or driving the agenda of the fund?
It winds up being a combination of both if we're doing our job. Because a lot of, for example, the city of Stillwater is talking about, just a little bit of money on a bond issue, right? 60. I think in total, if you add it all up, it comes closer to $90 million total for a fire station, roads, and their animal facility. They're going to open that up to the public for public comment. Realistically, how many people do you think are going to show up? Not many. At each one, how many? Yeah, if. About 24. So in that regard, we're not only informing, but I hope we're helping drive it when we report on the first one to get people to go to the second one. Because I have a hard time listening to a resident, and you'll notice I'll never say citizen because we're citizens of the US. We're not citizens of Stillwater, we're residents. But those people come into my office and complain that the city pulled the hood over people and got them to vote for this bond or this sales tax. Well, you've got some great points. Did you go make them be known? Well, no, who has time for that? Well, my dad once taught me you have enough time for anything you deem important enough to spend the time on. And it's kind of one of those things, you've heard the whole thing. You can't complain if you don't vote. Can't complain if you don't make your opinion known. But at the same point, I don't think those people actually they just want to complain. They just want to complain about. And some of them, and I've seen it before in my career, are the same people that if it didn't pass, would be the same people in there going, oh, can you believe the people here? Few people convinced them not to vote for it. Have you seen our roads? If you want to have your voices heard, you've got to go out to these type of things. And there is where we are kind of driving the agenda of go make your opinion known. If you've listened to our podcast that gives you kind of behind the scenes look, I made that point a week ago, which is please, I'm basically begging you, go to these things if you have an opinion, make it be known, because after it passes or doesn't pass, too late. But mostly it's going to be reporting what happens. Now, will there be an editorial occasionally, like if a girls basketball or softball team makes state final, they typically, whether it's fair, unfair, or indifferent, don't get the same representation. Might I write a column at that point going, they deserve our support, let's pack it out? Yeah, there I am kind of driving the agenda. But generally in the news part of it, it's just going to be what happened. Then if you want to make your opinion known, please go. Yes, sir.
So we're pretty much over time. I got one quick question for you.
Oh,
One quick
goodness.
answer.
Yeah, I got to get to Perkins. I'm meeting the police chief today.
How do you expect to work with OSU?
I'm hoping well. I was supposed to meet with OSU Athletics a week ago and then 4 days ago, and they kept having to move it down the road. I'm supposed to meet with, I think it's the school business director of marketing as well. And I've been in 4 college towns, or 5 actually. I prefer a college town. That's one of the reasons I picked here. And why I say you're stuck with me. So if y'all leave here going, oh, I can't believe it, you're going to be stuck with me for 20 years. Because Stillwater actually ticked off all the boxes that I wanted. But part of that was it being a college town. And they're notoriously hard to work with in just one way, in that each college within that university kind of has their own thing. So it's probably going to take me a year to meet everybody I've got to meet. Evidently, somebody's here who I need to converse with. But yeah, yes. So it's going to take a little while. I mean, I was really excited because your head football coach has the greatest quotes of all time. I'm just hoping I can recreate the "I'm a man, I'm 40" when he turns 60. But and he brought the mullet back inside. But for your question, if you want more in depth, if you just snag me next week, like I said, I got to be in Perkins in like 20 minutes. So, which I'm probably going to make. I don't know if I fully addressed what you were asking. So anytime, I'm an open book. You're not going to offend me by a question. I'll tell you exactly how I feel and where I'm coming from. And I'll give you exactly what I say. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So I'll tell you exactly how I feel about it.